Over here, I don't have all that control to paint the fine details, so I like to slide my hand closer to where I have a lot of control. One thing to know when you're selecting brushes is that I'm using an 1/8 inch brush here, but the reason I'm using an 1/8 inch brush is because when you push a lot of pressure on it, it becomes more like a 1/2 inch. When you push it onto, when you put it full force, you're able to spread those bristles out and make it wide. If I were to lighten up on that, I can make a much finer line just by barely putting that paint on there and barely applying pressure. Whereas that same brush, if I push even harder, I can just push it and make that width of that long tree trunk. So using the same brush, it just keeps you from having to change brushes so often and dirty up your water so often when you can use the same brush for many shapes, sizes, and widths, and it comes with practice. Once I have all the parts of the painting, in this case would be the horizon and the foreground trees. Once I have all that established in this very elementary form, which I call, or like to call, as the rough, from here is now to where we start building upon old paint, and we build on top of that, and we build on top of that to make these finer details come to life. So my next move in this painting process is I'm going to start by showing what appears to be a three-dimensional look about the picture. Right now, because it's a solid color, they're very flat. What I'm going to do is make that to where it's rounded. We can't see too clearly where these trunks go into the darkness of that background. So to boost and amplify where those trunks fall is I'm going to put a strip of orange and yellow on just the left side of these trunks to show where it continues down and to start showing that roundness. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. In this case, because I'm left-handed, I have a lot of difficulty holding the brush and not smearing it into the background color. And I'm not right-handed enough to where I can put that on there. So a technique that I have to overcome is something I came up with on my own, and that is to just simply take the canvas off the easel and I'm going to turn this right upside down. And you might think, why would he turn the painting upside down? Well, again, and I'm going to show you right here, by grabbing the orange colors, pumpkin orange and the bright orange, to where I hold my brush this way, the bristles can only go as far as you want to push them. So in this case, I'm just going to make a nice line, again, on the left side of the tree trunk, and that's going to start showing where those end up in front of the horizon, like this. There seems to be a lot of movement here, I know, but this is just how I overcome obstacles like this. You don't have to bend your hand around. It's easier just to take the canvas off and make that happen. And it's okay to carry these colors up into against the sky because the sun is still reflecting that. Like this. Now we at least know that these trunks continue in front of there and not overlap behind there. It doesn't show it clearly in the print, so we're just going to make that happen. Okay. There's another branch that you can't probably see on the camera here, but I'm going to highlight that in orange as well. The one that transitions across the front of those tree lines. And I'm going to help to illuminate where that branch is. In this case, I'm able to carry it from the silhouetted form into the highlighted form where it's closest to the sun here. Using a pumpkin orange, I'm going to borderline this yellow orange so that it's not such a stark contrast. It looks so cartoony. So we're going to use a different color and just border the yellow orange. It gives it a softer glow. Again, the contrast is not so abrupt. And it helps it to transition into the darkness on the other side of the tree. And I'm just going to repeat that process as I go across the canvas. You might notice how I hold my brush as well. Typically when people draw or write with a pen, they grab very close to the point of contact. I do pretty much the same with my brushes. It gives me much more control. It gives me a lot more control down here as opposed to holding the brush over here. I don't have all that control to paint the fine details, so I like to slide my hand closer to where I have a lot of control, like this. And I'm able to incorporate that onto the canvas. I had always been taught to use a brush and hold it at a distance. Well, the further out you get, the less control you seem to have to make those tighter details happen. I'm going to go ahead and show the other side of this tree here. It's going to be a little bit slightly lighter than this background, just enough to show the entire tree. In this case, I'm mixing just a brown. I'm just going to pull that down this way to give me a marker where it is. And it doesn't have to be a perfect paint job. Just something to show the contrast between the shadow of this tree versus the darkness of this background that it shows in the picture. This is a much wider tree right here, what appears to be a sycamore. And it's okay to go ahead and make this a little bit lighter since sycamores typically have a wider trunk than a white oak or a red oak or even a walnut tree. So we can kind of cheat that along in terms of lightness if we need to. From here we can go ahead and give this a nice blow dry. When working with acrylic paint, especially the type of paint that I use, a lot of the complaints are that, well, Paul, it really dries too fast. I mean, I can't just get those nice soft blends. In my case, it doesn't dry fast enough, so I speed it up with a hairdryer. It's used for techniques such as what I just did here, and that is, I want to show where the trees are, but I want to get to work immediately on the detail. So to speed that along and make it dry faster, we're going to use the old trusted hairdryer. Now I don't have to wait another 3 to 5 minutes to continue. I can just keep on working. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and clean this brush that I was once using for the tree trunks, now that I know where the trees are exactly. And I'm going to start from here, and I'm going to work in a spiral pattern and irradiate that illumination out of the sun, erasing a lot of this darkness through here, starting with the lightest color possible, which is a yellow and a white mix. So to be able to demonstrate that, I have a white and a yellow. I'm just going to grab about 50-50 and just mix that like this. And as I do so, I like to twirl that around. It just gives a nice even mix. And the first thing I want to do is show the roundness of the sun. So I'm just going to simply trace it around like this. And using the same technique as far as transition in the sky, I'm going to start adding darker colors as it goes away from the whiteness of the brilliance of the sun. So to get that, I'm going to go to the next lightest orange and grab a little bit of this and just start mixing that up. And again, using the same technique, you just want to put a strip around the yellow. Next one is followed by the pumpkin orange into the same puddle of the previous mix and make it darker. And to find the richest color, in this case is such a fire, almost a deep red color around there. We're going to go ahead and make this tree branch this color, followed by yet another circle around the sun. The paint is still wet, so we're going to clean the brush completely. And using just the dry brush, we're going to simply split the difference and blend each section into the next color so that it starts to look like it's glowing. And don't be afraid to stop where you are. You can always blow dry this. The next task I'm going to come up with is now finding the branches into the background trees and just using those as silhouettes to establish the attachment of leaves onto those to give that more realistic look.